What is the cost of subsistence? That is, what is the minimum amount of money you could spend on food while still getting all of the required nutrients? The answer is it depends, of course, on your height, your weight, your genes, and other biological factors. It depends on your lifestyle, your activity, your environment. It depends on all things nature and nurture. It also depends, perhaps most delicately, on prices. The subsistence question, or the diet problem as it came to be known in the mid-20th century, is, at its core, a question about human survival in commodity capitalism. Its answer is a barometer for inflation and the cost of living, and a necessary input to decision-making in social, environmental, and economic policy. Inherent in the question, however, is a normative stance so definitive and so banal that it's easy to miss. Since prices cannot be controlled, some cannot afford to live. Our ruling policymakers embody this normative stance when they implicitly or explicitly solve constrained optimization problems. A constrained optimization problem says, optimize this subject to that. The choice of this versus that is an ordering of priorities. What is negotiable versus non-negotiable? For example, do we want to feed the most people given that prices are set by some external, invisible force? Or do we want to set prices so that, at minimum, all people are fed? The articulation of a constrained optimization problem always has a substantive, normative thrust. It reflects priorities. It reflects which ground conditions are taken as fixed and unchanging, and which are deemed flexible. And it is a reflection of who ought to have authority to formulate such an objective in the first place. Most of the time, we inherit a position on the proper sorting of objectives and constraints, and this position takes root in our discourse and our institutions. Economics, statistics, and computation, the rhetoric of modern policy discourse, are not neutral in this process. Curiously, the diet problem featured prominently in the development of the algorithms which elevate, enervate, rule, and ruin our lives today. Simple as it seems now in our time of ubiquitous mathematical modeling and endless computing power, a rigorous solution to the diet problem eluded many bright minds for many dark years. In the journey toward its solution, we see the marriage of computing and economics through the mathematics of optimization, and the beginning of the end of the world as we know it. The story begins in the Great Depression, when dire economic circumstances and the World War that followed traced out research frontiers in mathematics, economics, and statistics. We venture first into an administrative unit in the bowels of American bureaucracy, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Roll call. A future president of the American Statistical Association, graduate student Jerry Cornfield, arrived at the Bureau of Labor Statistics in 1934. Over the next several years, he would split his time between the Bureau's offices in the Department of Labor on 14th Street and Constitution Avenue, and the Department of Agriculture's Graduate School on 14th Street and Independence Avenue, a few blocks south in Washington, D.C. In 1937, Milton Friedman, 25-year-old economist and future horseman of the apocalypse, left his post working on the urban study of consumer purchases, an initiative sponsored by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Friedman's departure freed up a position. A young mathematician fresh off a master's degree in mathematics, George Dantzig, filled the vacancy. He was paid $1,140 per year. Between 1941 and 1945, Harvard professor of economics Wassily Leontief was a frequent visitor to 14th Street and Constitution Avenue. Arrested more than once by the Bolshevik police before leaving the Soviet Union at the age of 19, Leontief is best known for his Nobel Prize-winning development of input-output analysis. The Bureau of Labor Statistics hired him to apply his model to the interdependencies of the U.S. economy, asking questions like, how will the cessation of war purchases of planes, guns, tanks, and ships, if not compensated by increased demand for other types of commodities, affect the national level of employment? In 1961, George Stigler led the Price Statistics Review Committee on a quest to better understand the measurement of inflation. The committee, which came to be known as the Stigler Commission, led to the establishment of a permanent research division for the study of prices at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. During the war, the U.S. Army asked Jerry Cornfield to come up with a low-cost diet for GI soldiers. Cornfield, still plodding in and out of government buildings in 1941, wrote down a mathematical statement of the problem and offered an approximate solution in an unpublished Bureau of Labor Statistics memorandum. Meanwhile, Stigler also searched for a solution to the diet problem. In an essay titled "The Cost of Subsistence," published in a 1945 issue of the Journal of Farm Economics, Stigler clears his throat. Elaborate investigations have been made of the adequacy of diets at various income levels, and a considerable number of low-cost, moderate, and expensive diets have been recommended to consumers. Yet, so far as I know, no one has mined the minimum cost of obtaining the amounts of calories, protein, minerals, and vitamins which these studies accept as adequate or optimum. This will be done in the present paper. By testing out different baskets of commodities, Stigler ended up with the following recommendation: 370 pounds of wheat flour, 57 cans of evaporated milk, 111 pounds of cabbage, 23 pounds of spinach, 285 pounds of dried navy beans, 134 pounds of pancake flour, and 25 pounds of pork liver. In 1939, this delightful diet would cost $39.93.